Vignett's corner, beyond Bent. Janssen! And Blackburn Rovers are 18 minutes away from a Premiership return.
As far as Stewart, just outside the penalty area, clips it central for David Dunn. David Dunn equalises! It just had to be! Dack's corner and it goes, glance towards goal! And Rovers have taken the lead! And Charlie Mulgrew has scored his 14th of the season. It may well be the goal that sends Rovers back into the Championship.
Good evening, Rovers fans, and welcome to another edition of On the Other Side, live with me, Ryan Hildred from Rovers Chat. Rovers' horror run of form continued on Tuesday evening with a 6 defeat in 7 games away at Reading. And it doesn't get any easier as we take on the improving Millwall at the Den tomorrow afternoon. As ever, I'm delighted to be joined by an opposition fan, and this time we've got Lucas Ball back for the return leg, journalist from Southwark News. How are you doing tonight, Lucas?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Looking forward to the game tomorrow. Yourself?
Not looking forward to the game tomorrow. About doing my research for this show, I was just scaring myself more and more, but we'll see how you think about it. Rovers fans, just a few reminders as we usually do. If you are subscribed to our YouTube channel, please hit that bell symbol to get all notifications for when our video content goes live. And of course, please give this video and all of our other videos a like as well. And if you did want to support our channel tonight, we do have Super Chat available again, as we do through all of our live shows now. We're really grateful for everyone's support as you've been doing over the last few live streams. And we will have the fans wall available tomorrow in the pre-show and the watch along, and also the post-match as well for the last week or so support that we've had. But of course, as we always say, no one's under any obligation to donate to the channel, and we'll always run through the comments as we usually do. But just before we start, just a reminder, we are sponsored by Blue Rose Capital. And of course, we are sponsored by 6yardsout.com.
The Rovers Chat YouTube channel is proudly sponsored by 6yardsout.com. They've got retro football from every era with mugs, phone cases and much more. They also have plenty of Rovers goods, including apparel with the famous 94-95 season and this season's kit. Check them out using the link in the description below.
Thank you to Blue Rose Capital and to 6yardsout.com for their very, very kind sponsorship this season. Just before we start, Lucas, I'm just going to go into the comments. Oh, we got Andy with us. There we go. I love you to beat Millwall. Nice background. Don't know if you've ever met Andy, Lucas, but he's a Barnsley fan and he's a cracking lad. So he's obviously wanting you to not get closer to them. And Ollie James, after slagging the flag off in my garage, will have less of that. The green screen looking good with Ewood Park behind me. So let us know what you think, Rovers fans, if you think it looks good. Looks good to me. I'm liking it. So pleased it's there. So there we go, Lucas. Let's not delay. Let's get stuck into this preview, even though I'm not looking forward to it. So when we spoke early in December, Millwall at that point, you were in your worst run of form all season. You had just 1 win in 13 games, which included 5 defeats and then the 5 draws in a row that you had on the bounce before playing Rovers. And we meet you this time, you're on a completely opposite run of form. You've got just 1 defeat in 11 games, and that includes 4 wins and 5 draws. 8 defeats all season is the 5th lowest in the division. 16 draws is the highest. So you've always been tough to beat all season, despite those 2 runs of form. But what's changed recently? You know, what have the additional wins been as a result of? You know, what's changed?
So sort of we went to Forest in mid-January and got done up there quite badly. It ended 3-1, but it was a pretty poor performance from us. And then after that, Rowett sort of started to show signs of implementing this 5-3-2 formation rather than the 5-2-3 we'd used for the majority of his tenure. So sort of switched to that. And I think partly we've just been a bit more lucky with the chances we've had, and we have been that bit more clinical. but equally the formation change has helped in a lot of games in that it's given us that extra body in midfield, or the odd time when like Matt Smith's played up front, it gets people closer to him because you've already got that extra striker at least. Whereas if you played a 5-2-3 with Smith, then the wingers could leave him quite isolated. So that's been probably the biggest change, and we're still missing a lot of key players. So this run's been even more impressive for me when we've missed the likes of Cooper for 2 or 3 games in that run. Zohore's missed a good chunk of it. Mahoney's missed the whole thing. Billy Mitchell only made his first start of the season on Tuesday night. And I think Murray Wallace is still out injured, and Ryan Leonard, who's a contender for player of the season as well. So given the injuries, I think it's a particularly impressive run.
Yeah, it is, and it was the first part of me scaring the living god out of myself before this game, just seeing the type of run you're on at the moment, and actually just how few games you've lost all season. It's quite remarkable, actually, that you've got that 5th lowest total when you think about what the top 4 have been doing this season. For you to be 5th in that list is just amazing, really. And just a couple of things. Absolutely hats off to Millwall FC's social media account the other day for the whole Billy Mitchell thing. I thought that was quite funny. Good tweet, that one. If you've not seen it, Rovers fans, go and have a look. It involves the real Billy Mitchell from EastEnders and then the Billy Mitchell from Millwall. It's a good tweet, that one. And I just want to say happy birthday to Kevin. Didn't realise it was your birthday, Kevin. So I hope you're having a good birthday, and I do try and cheer you up on this show, but I can't promise that because Millwall are going to be a tough nut to crack tomorrow, I can assure you. So, Lucas, if we move on then, when we did speak again earlier on in the season, we spoke about Millwall being up there in playoff contention for the last 2 or 3 seasons. But when we spoke earlier in the season and then just in the season overall, it's taken you a while to get going. You're now up to 10th on 46 points, but you are 9 points off the playoffs still. Are you holding out any hope of a playoff push?
I think it's unrealistic for us to really challenge this season. But we've always been a second half season side, really. We're always a lot stronger in the second half of the campaign, and that's proved to be the case so far this year. But I just think we left ourselves that little bit too much to do this time round. Especially with the number of players out, we can't rotate, and rotation's important in a normal season, let alone in a season hit by COVID where fixtures are even more squashed together. So I think sort of over the next few weeks, if players aren't coming back, then maybe we'll sort of start to tire out and probably fall back from the playoffs a little bit. But any sort of a respectable mid-table finish, I think anywhere from 10th to 14th is sort of where we're looking at finishing now, and that's a good platform to build on for next season, and hopefully we can actually spend not huge amounts of money. We're never going to spend huge amounts of money, but just a little bit more in the knowing that fans should be back properly from next season, which is a positive for every team up and down the country, obviously.
Definitely. If you do want a little bit of optimism, when I spoke to Andy Simcox, the Barnsley fan, they were 7 points off the playoffs before we played them, and they've gone on some hellish run now. So if you beat Rovers tomorrow, you never know. Look where they are now. So let's see how you do after playing us. Oh, here we go. My mum's in the house. Hello, Mum. Love in the background. There we go. So, Lucas, moving on then. If we talk about Gary Rowett for a moment, he's got a big reputation at Championship level, probably tainted by that spell at Stoke, though, before he joined Millwall. For teams like Rovers and Millwall to compete with the top 6, as we're finding out, you do need a manager that can get the very best out of your squad. So he's been with you 18 months now. What's the view on Rowett and the job he's doing at Millwall?
I think naturally he came under a bit of pressure earlier in the season from the fans. I don't think there was so much pressure from the board, really. I think that was more just fan-led, which is understandable when you're on such a poor run. And the fans were rightly ground frustrated at times. I think some fans stood of the view that he's a little bit too negative in the fact that we've got so many draws. But equally, I think, as you say, for teams like us, then to compete at this level, you do have to have that hard to beat factor and that ability to be solid for a base at least, and then you need your flair players in attack to step up more, which some of our players haven't done enough this season, and others have been out injured for the majority of the season, which is obviously a huge hindrance, and we haven't exactly got the finances, particularly in COVID, where we can go out in January and say, yeah, we'll loan someone in on 20 grand a week just because Conor Mahoney's out for another couple of months, or 𝐁𝐸𝐻𝑍's out for another couple of months. So yeah, let's get someone else in on that sort of money. It's not a realistic thing for our side. So I think for the most part, yeah, Rowett, he deserved the time he got, and he's started to turn it around again now, and he has improved a lot of our players since he came in, and I'm sure we'll continue to do so. So I'm looking forward to him actually getting a proper crack at a transfer window this summer, hopefully, which he hasn't really had so far. His first transfer window was in January, which is always hard to do business, and the two since then have been hit by COVID. So, just ridiculous to try and do any sort of real business in, and understandably, because teams don't want to lose their assets. So I think, yeah, give him that time, and hopefully he can get some more quality in and improve us further.
Absolutely, and our manager's obviously getting a lot of talk in the Rovers fan base at the moment with the run of form we're in, and I think it's perfectly clear now that to compete with these clubs in the top six, particularly with the strength that they're coming down with, Watford and Norwich and teams like that, you do need that manager that just gets the very best and just allows you to break that ceiling, and that's ultimately what Barnsley are doing at the moment. It's what Swansea are doing. Haven't necessarily got the best squads, but they're getting the most out of them, aren't they? And I think that's what you need. So, yeah, interesting comments there on Rowett, and see how he does in the next transfer window then, Lucas. So moving on then, I'm sorry to bring this up, but we have to talk about this. I did show you a little sneak of this image just before we came live. The return fixture at Ewood Park, Millwall desperately unlucky in that game. Stoppage time winner from Adam Armstrong. And then, this looks like a handball right at the very end of the game. With the form you were in at that point, it was 5 draws on the bounce and you hadn't had a win in a while. What were your thoughts on that game and particularly the handball as well?
Yeah, I mean, it was a really tough one to take at the time. I think there were a couple of other good handball shouts as well, actually. And I think Rowett did comment afterwards. I think your players had admitted at least 2 of them should have been penalties. So it was really frustrating, with the refereeing performance, but equally, it was a much better performance than we had been putting in, and we'd been putting in some worse performances, and we'd still got points out of the game. So then when you got up to Ewood, when you guys were in good form at the time as well, and then to go up there and I wouldn't say maybe we quite matched you. You guys were probably slightly the better side, but I think we were much better than we had been in the weeks leading up to that. And then to come away with nothing was probably really demoralising for the players, particularly with those appeals. And
oh, have we lost you, Lucas? Is he still there, or have I gone? Am I on my own? Someone comment in the comments. Have we lost Lucas, or have you lost me? We lost Lucas. Lost Lucas. He'll be back soon. I think we lost him last time as well. So he does look asleep on there. So I'm on my own then. So Rovers fans, you're going to have to entertain me whilst we wait for Lucas to rejoin us. So let us, what were your memories of that game? This at the end, I mean, I think there was a replay, wasn't there? Or we got a bit of an iFollow style replay. Until Dan retrieved this image for me, I didn't realise quite how bad the handball was. I think we've got Lucas back now. Here he is. So we'll get rid of that. He's back. This happened to you last time, didn't it?
Yeah. And the Wi-Fi's been fine all day, and then jump on this, and all of a sudden it decided it doesn't want to work.
Down in London, what's going on?
Oh, I'm not sure what's going on there, but at least it's back working pretty quickly.
It is. I was having to make some light conversation with the Rovers fans just whilst we waited for you to come back. And I asked them about the handball, hand of God. Very lucky. There we go. So, no, carry on, Lucas, just about that game and your thoughts on it.
Yeah, so I say it was just I think, particularly demoralising when we played much better than we had done on that run. And then, to come away with nothing after a late goal, which admittedly the late goal came after some really poor play from us. I'm not sure what we were trying to do, dribbling it out of defence at that stage of the game. We've never been a team really to dribble the ball out of defence, so I don't know why we suddenly thought in the 92nd minute or whatever it was at Ewood Park that, this is a good idea. So it was just frustrating, but equally frustrating in terms of the performance and conceding a late goal and obviously the refereeing decisions.
Yeah, and I remember thinking at the time, obviously I was really ecstatic to get the win because you're thinking, because we didn't play too well that game, I must admit. So you're thinking, right, we've kind of robbed a stoppage time winner then. That's the type of win that you need to have if you're going to make playoffs this season, and we weren't that far off. Actually, now we know what we know as Rovers fans. I think the universal view amongst our fans is Norwich at home, which was a couple of weeks after this Millwall game, was probably the last time we played really well in a game. So actually, maybe this Millwall game was the start of our form just starting to decline, really. So at the time, I thought, good result. But actually, we scraped it against a team that were 1 win in 11 games, or 13 games, sorry. So, interesting, that one. So, Lucas, if we move on again then, we do this every week with all the fans, just a bit of a detailed look at the stats for Millwall. So if we just have a look at that, you're mid to lower table across those main metrics. But in football, if you don't concede goals, you ultimately won't lose many games. And Millwall have only conceded 31 goals, which is the 4th best in the division this season. And we've already covered the 8 losses that you've had this season being the 5th best alongside those 16 draws. So what's it been like watching Millwall this season? Are you ultra defensive, or do you want to see a bit more attacking from Millwall? What's that like as a fan to watch a team play in that way?
But there's certainly been times I'd like to see that little bit more attacking in games. There's been certain games where we've set up in a back 5 against the likes of Wycombe at home, which, no disrespect to Wycombe, but for me, they're a team we should be beating, particularly when it came in part of this good run, and a team that we certainly should have looked to attack more from my perspective. But we had played well in the back 5 in the midweek game that week, so I suppose he just wanted to stick with the system for continuity. But it's I'm still fortunate enough to be going to a lot of the games in the stadium, and for the most part, I think we have tried to win games where we can. Been certain games we've been a bit more defensive, like the likes of Norwich away. We did set up for a draw and very much, the odd counter attack where maybe we could have smashed and grabbed a result, but it didn't happen. We got a 0-0 draw. But then the home game against Norwich, we did sort of go more toe to toe with Norwich, and I think actually that night we deserved the win. There's been a couple of times, but I'm sure that's the case with every team, where there's a few games where the fans want their team to be playing this more attacking football and let the shackles off. But it's hard without fans as well to sort of, if you have that 5-minute spell when the stadium's full of peppering the opposition back and penning them back in their own box, the fans get right on top and sort of help you build that momentum. And you can't do that at the moment, obviously. So particularly for a team who rely on their home support so much like us, it's very difficult.
And what are you like as a side when you go behind in games, for example? Because I think one of the big things in the Rovers fan base and one of our frustrations is we are terrible when we go behind in a game of football. And I think we look at a side like Millwall, who look really defensively resolute and do that side of the game really well first. That's what we're craving as fans as well, just that good, solid defensive base to then build from. For Rovers, it seems to all come tumbling down, as I say, when we go behind. Are you good at coming from behind in games, or is that first goal important in your games as well?
I think you always want to get the first goal, obviously, but equally in the last few weeks, we've been really good at coming back from a goal down. I think we've won 3 or 4 games in this run after falling behind. Reading away, we went 1-0 down and 1-2-1. Preston at home in midweek, we went 1-0 down and 1-2-1. Sheffield Wednesday scored the first goal as well, and we beat them 4-1. And Luton were leading up until we got that stoppage time equaliser at Kenilworth Road. So last few weeks we've been pretty good at coming from behind, and the players haven't let their heads drop. The frustrating thing is that in a couple of those games, maybe it feels like we've sort of waited until we've gone a goal behind to really start playing, and and putting that bit more energy in, which is frustrating because you're thinking if you played like that from the start, you probably wouldn't have fallen from behind in the first place. But in midweek, that wasn't the case. Neither side played with much quality for the first sort of 15 minutes, and then Ched Evans just scored an absolute screamer. So not so many complaints on that one. And Scott Malone soon followed it up with a screamer of his own, who he certainly seems to be keen to wrap up Millwall's goal of the season competition because he scored 3 or 4 very good strikes this year.
Absolutely. So if we look at your top performers this season, then Lucas, again, this is something we do with all the fans who join the show. Jed Wallace, unsurprisingly, top goal scorer and top assist maker. So for a team that is so defensively tight, how reliant are you on Wallace, and where do you think you would be without him?
Yeah, I mean, we're fairly reliant on him in terms of him to drive us up the pitch. And certainly most good things in an attacking sense come from him. But certainly in the last couple of weeks, Mason Bennett's really stepped up. He's got 2 in 2. And Scott Malone has improved even further. He's been solid throughout the season, Malone, but in the last couple of weeks he's stepped up more and offered us a little bit more down the left-hand side as well as the right where Jed operates. But Jed's sort of given a bit more of a free role now. And yeah, we are that bit reliant on him. I'm not sure I want to think too much about where we'd be if he wasn't in the team, because it could be pretty grim thinking. And it'd certainly be a bit further down the table, particularly when Mahoney's missed the vast majority of the season, who is probably the other really talented winger in terms of raw ability and the ability to make things happen. Bennett will make things happen with his pace and power. And he is a good technical player, but Mahoney is a really good dribbler. Really good crossing ability, makes things happen from set pieces and with his deliveries. So it's tough to think about where we might be without Jed, and without him, it would possibly be a relegation battle looming, or we wouldn't be as far above the relegation zone as we are now.
For sure. And before I move on to the defensive side on that graphic, I'm just going to bring in David's comment here. What's your opinion on Mahoney and how he's developed at Millwall? Because, he did leave Rovers. I think a few fans were gutted to see him leave Rovers actually when he did go. And we have been quite interested in how he's been doing. So how's he getting on? Yeah,
so he sort of had a run in the team probably October this season, and he started to perform. Luton at home seems to be his favourite game because he had won the game off the bench against them on New Year's Day 2020. Turned the game around when we were 1-0 down at half time. I think he scored and got an assist, and we won 3-1. And then Luton at home this year, he scored 1 and had another brilliant game. But we're starting to show a bit more form. I think the thing Rowett wants more from him is he doesn't maybe do as much of the defensive side as some of our other wingers do. And I think Rowett was keen to get that out of him, because we all know how talented he is. He's a really talented player and a really good technical player, but he could just go that bit missing sometimes in games, and was perhaps deemed to be a little bit lazy on the defensive side at times, which Rowett isn't going to take. But I think the main thing from him is he just needs to improve his consistency, because when he's been playing well for us, he's been really good and one of our best players. So if he can just do that on a more regular basis, then it will certainly give Rowett more of a headache down that left-hand side, and could easily make the spot his own, to be honest.
Yeah, and at the point when he broke into our side, we were a couple months off being relegated, and he just seemed to be a real bright spot, and one you think, right, you've been relegated into League One, he could get us back up, and it just wasn't to be in that sense, and he obviously went to Bournemouth. But good luck to Mahoney. He's obviously a local lad to Rovers, and we do want to see him well, as much as he did leave in a bad light. So if we just go back onto this graphic then, Lucas, just on the defensive side, unsurprisingly, Jake Cooper and Sean Hutchinson, top of your 𝐬𝐫𝐶𝐞𝐫.com ratings. The fifth best defence suggests that these two are solid. So talk to us about what they bring to your defence. What's their strengths in defence?
Yeah, so Cooper at sort of, I think he's 6'5" or 6'6". Doesn't lose many aerial duels, unsurprisingly, and and a really good defender all round, to be fair. Has his positioning spot on a lot of the time, and marks well, and sort of dominates most of his duels. And actually in the last couple of years since Rowett came in, has really developed in terms of his ball progression as well. Been more than one occasion where you've seen him sort of marauding up the left flank and getting into the box from that left centre back role in the back five, which I don't think any of us expected when he signed for us. But he's certainly developed that side of his game too, Cooper particularly, and is a lot better on the ball now, and you don't panic so much every time he receives it in defence. Hutchinson is a really good leader for us, often captains the side because Alex Pearce doesn't start quite as many games anymore, and a really good defender in his own right too. I think he's in the top 5 for tackles and interceptions in the league this season, and his ratings obviously up there on who scored as well. And he's impressed or progressed, in terms of moving the ball forward too, because he played in that right centre back role a lot of the time in this back five. But since Evans came in, and when Cooper and Evans have both been fit and in the team, then Hutchinson sort of moved into that middle centre back role. So there's a little bit less reliance on him in terms of moving the ball forward. But Evans has been a really astute signing, and at 750,000, I think we paid, actually looks like an incredible bit of business already, and he's probably been one of our best players since he came in. So been really impressed by him, and he's certainly improved us defensively. But equally, I'm looking forward to him playing in midfield when we've got a few more options, because I think his quality on the ball with someone like, if you partnered him with someone like either Woods or Mitchell, I think that'd offer us a lot more in midfield, which is where we've perhaps been lacking at times this season.
Sure. And just before I go on to my next question, I'm just going to pick up another one from David that he asked earlier. So are you going to break the championship season draw record of 22, 6 to go? Can you see it?
6 to go from 12 games. I don't think we'll draw 6 from our last 12. I think we'll get close. I think we'll probably hit 20, but I don't think we'll quite beat the record. I think the last few weeks have shown the team maybe a little bit more in terms of what they need to do to turn those tight games into wins, or we'll end up throwing more players forward in those games because they're a bit more confident and losing a few of them. So we'll have to wait and see. But I don't think we'll break it, but I wouldn't be too shocked if we did.
So if we start to move towards the game itself then, Lucas, and look at your home form specifically, this is the second thing which started scaring the living God out of me. You've got 3 wins in 4 at home within this run of 1 defeat in 11. And in fact, it's just 3 defeats at home all season. Brentford, Norwich, Watford, Reading have all drawn at the Den. And it's always been regarded as a tough place to go with your fans there. So you've got 10 of your 16 draws this season have been at home. So I've just got an interesting question for you here. Do you think Millwall can make a solid claim for the impact of no fans this season, especially maybe some of those draws turning into wins if your fans were there? And do you think you could have been higher up maybe if the fans were in the stadium, particularly with that good solid defensive base that you've got?
Yeah, definitely. I think probably you'd be looking at a good 3 or 4 of those home draws, I think at least, would possibly be wins with fans in the ground. I certainly think we'd have beaten Norwich with fans in the ground, probably Brentford, and maybe a couple of the others as well. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but so you look at those games and you think, yeah, with fans, when the team were getting on top in those games and had good spells, you think with fans that would have been a really interesting encounter, and could the fans have seen them over the line? We struggled with our home form a little bit after the restart last year. So I think we only won 2 or 3 of our sort of 5. I think we won 2 out of 5 of our home games after the restart. But one of those was the last game of the season, which was a bit of a dead rubber at that point. Huddersfield were more than safe, and we were out of the playoff race. So it didn't matter too much. But yeah, I think certainly the fans not being there has affected it. You know, we went on that run from the Luton game at home, I think was October the 20th off the top of my head. And we didn't win at home until a few weeks ago. So that long run was a bit concerning. But then, yeah, most of those games were draws, and and we've actually still only lost a couple of games at home, which is a nice stat to have even in this season.
Yeah, I just found it quite fascinating again when I was just looking into Millwall. 10 of your 16 draws at home, and I just think, some of those games that were either 0-0 or 1-1, I can just picture your fans just sucking that ball into the net in any other season. And obviously, if you did get 4 wins out of those 10 draws, that's another 8 points on the points total, isn't it? And you're only 9 points off the playoffs. So I do think Millwall have got a solid claim actually for the impact of the pandemic, particularly with where you came last season as well. You weren't that far off the playoffs, were you? What was it, 2 points? So I think it's impacted you. So before we came live then, Lucas, I asked you for your predicted lineup. So just talk us through a little bit about this, particularly players that you might not have spoken about, or how you're expecting to approach the game tomorrow.
Yeah, so a lot of our attacking play will be reliant on probably Malone and Bennett will sort of step inside that little bit to get closer to Bodvarsson. So Malone will be sort of the main driving force down the left, and he got a goal at Ewood, obviously, and as I mentioned, he's scored a couple of really good goals this season, so a bit of a danger man going forward. And then down the right, it's more about how well can Romeo and Wallace link up. If those guys get their link-up play right and deliver into the box with some quality, then we'll be a real threat down both sides when we do get forward. So those guys will be key. In terms of Bodvarsson up front, it was an interesting one up front because I wasn't really sure who would start, but he had a really strong second half actually against Preston and held the ball up really well, put a couple of good crosses in. Didn't really have any chances himself, so no chances squandered or taken particularly, but he showed signs of why he's in the team and why Rowett picked him on Tuesday night. The back three sort of picks itself when those guys are fit. That's by far our strongest back three. And those guys are a really good defensive unit and have looked good in the games they've played together. The one change I would maybe think could happen in the back five is Romeo could drop out for McNamara, because Romeo sort of started probably the last 7 or 8 games now, but not sure about that either way on that one. And then Woods and Mitchell in midfield. It's just about whether Mitchell can go again, really. He played his first 90 of the season on Tuesday night, and it was his first start all season. So it's just whether he's got the legs to go again. If not, it'd probably be Thompson that would come in, and then Woods will sort of be that holding midfielder and the deep line role and just keep things ticking over, demanding the ball and spreading it. And then Thompson or Mitchell will be sort of the more box-to-box midfielder. Thompson carries a little bit more of a goal threat than Mitchell, I'd say, but not seeing enough of Billy in that central midfield role to comment as much on that, because a lot of the time when he's played for the first team, he's been a right wing back more, because he can play in that position too. So I'm interested to see if Mitchell can add that side to his game, and he's got a decent passing range as well, I think, from what I've seen of him. So it'll be interesting to see if he can supply the forwards with some good balls as well.
Indeed, and I'm just going to pick up the comments that we've had. So Alexander, this looks impossible to score against an FM. Really can't see us winning tomorrow. Hutchinson, a solid centre-back. So with that in mind, Lucas, and looking at that side, where are the areas of weakness that Rovers might try and exploit? So
Malone does love to get forward, which could possibly leave us a little bit exposed defensively at times. So it's just about whether whoever's playing on the right for you guys could sort of get up against Cooper 1v1 and make the most of those opportunities, but then still got Hutchinson and Evans to deal with in the box, which is a fearful prospect for most championship attacks. Romeo down the right can be a little bit suspect defensively too, so it's probably the wing backs defensively, but Malone's certainly got the pace to get back. It's just how far forward he gets, and got the intelligence. Romeo possibly less so, is a little bit suspect defensively at times. So it's dependent on those guys maybe, but I'd say through the middle we're pretty solid. In that front three will press quite high, I'd have thought. So there'll be it's just about making sure that when those guys press, they don't leave gaps in behind too. And Woods and Mitchell certainly. Woods will hold in front of the defence, so not going to go pressing the ball too high up the pitch. But Mitchell is that box-to-box midfielder, so when he goes and press, he needs to make sure he understands his press triggers and gets those exactly right. Otherwise, he could leave it a little bit exposed, particularly if, as I've seen someone mention, if Bradley Johnson's back, we know what he can do. So that would be an interesting one. But I know obviously he is a doubt for tomorrow.
Yeah, he is. And the Second Tier podcast dragged up some interesting stats about they did each player what the points per game is with those players in the side, and Bradley Johnson was our highest actually, which I thought quite interesting. And I do think we've missed a bit of his steal in the middle, definitely. But main thing that has been picked up based on what you've said, Lucas, is the fact that Tyrese Dolan has to start for us. So Chris Dolan needs to start, and Nadeem Dolan needs to play on the right because he outpaces the centre backs easily. So and then there we go. FM Dolan has to start but won't start. Rovers are using him as a PR player to sell shirts, just sign a new contract to get 5 mins every game. Shocking. Yeah, it's a shame for Dolan, isn't it, FM? But with what Lucas has said, I think it is crying out for a bit of Dolan magic down the right-hand side, and maybe see if Harvey Elliott can have a free roam position, or, you know, see where he might slot in somewhere else. I'd love to see Dolan down the right. I really would. So Rovers fans, please get your predictions into the comments as we usually do, and I will run through those in a moment. But as much as I've probably just scared the living God out of everyone about how the hell we win this game tomorrow, and sorry, Kevin, for adding some pessimism to your birthday. It isn't what I intended. I'll give Rovers fans a little crumb of comfort. We've only lost 1 match in the last 8 games at the Den. That's 4 wins and 3 draws and just the 1 defeat, which was last season. And that's since 2002. So I'm going to take that as my little nugget of positivity. So we're not too bad at the Den, but there were some draws in there as well. So maybe it'll be a draw. So Lucas, I'm going to come to you first then and put you on the spot. How do you think the game's going to go? What is your score prediction?
Yeah, I think you guys are probably going to find us hard to break down tomorrow. It'll be about whether someone like Elliott or Dolan, as you say, has got that individual bit of quality in them, I think, for you guys. Because I suppose on the run, you know, you guys are on, obviously it's going to be a team bereft of confidence to a degree. So it's whether those guys can pull something special out, I think. But I'm going to back our guys to have enough just to get close enough to them all the time, and not give any of those opportunities away. And I'll go for a 1-0 win, but it could easily be a draw as well. It's just whether we can actually find the net, because that's not a particularly strong point of ours.
No, I don't know where I am with this one. Again, my head is just saying 1-0 Millwall. You know, you'll get the goal and then that's it. We'll struggle to break you down and get something. But I'm actually going to go for Rovers to score the first goal, and maybe you just peg us back. I'm going to say 1-1. It won't be the perfect result for Mowbray, but 1-1 is what I'm thinking. I think we've got a goal in us. I really do. I think we might just surprise and get that goal. But I think Millwall are tough to beat at home this season. And as you've said, Lucas, you've come from behind in a few of your games recently. You're in some good form at home. So we're certainly not going to have it our own way. But yeah, 1-1 is what I'm thinking, is my prediction. So before I do just pick up on the predictions, yeah, Joe, you've done this on the Rovers Analytics account. Have you noticed any of this whilst you've been at the stadium, Lucas? So against 4-3-3 formations this season, you've got a 0% win rate. So have you spotted that, or have you noticed teams setting up in a particular way where they're getting that joy? Obviously, a lot of those games are probably draws, but you know, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting actually. I think I've noticed it. Maybe not specifically the 4-3-3, but in the sense that when we have played the 5-2-3, the midfield has at times got a bit overrun because it's 2 against 3. It's going to happen if teams make the most of that, particularly when it's been someone like Thompson in that deeper role as the sort of 8 in that 5-2-3 instead of Mitchell. I'm not a huge fan of Thompson in that role because I don't think he's got the defensive discipline to play it, and particularly when it's been, say, him and Woods. He's sometimes got caught upfield and then left Woods even more exposed against an extra man in midfield. So I think I've noticed that more rather than specifically the 4-3-3.
Great, thank you. I was just chuckling at some of the comments as they're coming in as I'll go through them in a minute. Right. So who was first? Before I do that, because I missed that question from Chris. Do you get many red cards? I can't say it stood out from my research actually, but I might have just missed that.
No. Trying to think if we've had. I'm sure we have had one this season at some stage, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. But there's not many. No.
I must admit, I'd filtered the WhoScored.com table for red cards, and you weren't at the top, so I ignored it because it's the first thing I looked at. I was like, "Oh, how many red and yellow?" So I think discipline-wise, you've been all right this season. Right. So first in was JH, who went for a 1-1. Else is going for a 6-4. Ben, that is very pessimistic. 4-1 Millwall. Jeez, if that was if that happens, then there's a
We've
long
already
way.
won once 4-1 at home this season. I can't see it happening again. We very rarely score more than 2, so for it to happen twice in a month would be some sort of miracle, I think.
It'll be a long way back from Mowbray from that's for sure. David's gone for a 0-0 drab draw, which I was tempted by, but I'm fancying a couple of goals in the game. Chris has gone 2-1 Millwall. Else was saying 6-4 to Millwall is what he meant. Mark, 1-0 Millwall. FM, 2-1 Millwall. Kevin, I like it. 2-1 Rovers win. Nadeem, you need to make your mind up. 0-0 or 2-1 to Rovers. I don't know if you've qualified that further down the comments. We'll have a look in a moment. Ollie, this has got 1-0 written all over it, sadly. 1-0 to Millwall. Luke, a thriller, a game that will have everything end-to-end, entertaining, exhilarating.
I'll tell you what, that'd make my match report a bit easier.
Yeah, it must be tough for you with those. Alexander, I have to go in my heart and say 1-0 Rovers win. Good on you, Alexander. Go with your heart. Autumn, 1-0 Rovers, leaving us just 3 points behind Millwall. Where were the days of us being 3 points off the playoffs, eh? We can go 3 points behind Millwall with a win. My word. Joe, 2-2. I like it, Joe. High scoring. It'll make the watch-along entertaining. Chris going absolutely in on the bait. So we do these watch-alongs, Lucas, and we're on to our 8th. We started at QPR away at the start of February, and we've had 6 losses and 1 draw. It's been quite remarkable.
Ooh.
So not good. And Joe and Luca are in the comments. Do them with me, and it's been painful. Although, Gillis, if you want to take accountability for it, you can. We've not won since I've been providing my predictions, so I'll abstain. So, yeah, you take some responsibility. It's not the watch-alongs. Dave, 1-0 to Millwall, sad to say. And then, cheers, Lucas, fills me with less confidence. So there we are. It's going to be a tough nut to crack tomorrow. Millwall are in a decent little bit of form. They've been tough to beat all season, and they're adding a few wins into it now. So I can't see Rovers winning the game, unfortunately. But I can see us scoring and maybe pegging them back. So I'm going for a 1-1 draw. But you can see there, Lucas, not overly optimistic Rovers fans there. And we are stuck in this run of form, which we need to somehow get out of because our season is spiraling out of control. And, you know, it weren't long ago that we were probably, 8, 9, 10 points above Millwall. And now look where we are. So crazy form for Rovers. So, Lucas, thank you for giving up your Friday evening and coming to chat to us about Millwall. And, enjoy the game tomorrow as well. Lucky in the ground and getting to do that still. So hopefully we're all back with you next season. Hopefully, indeed. And Rovers fans, just a few reminders. If you are not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please hit that subscribe button. Please turn on all notifications by hitting that bell icon. And please give this video a like and all of our other videos a like as well. We really appreciate your support and contributions to the channel. We'll have the fans wall available tomorrow, so you can see all of the super chats that we've had over the last week. We are, of course, back tomorrow with our pre-show and watch-along from about 2:30 with myself, Joe and Luke. And then we'll be live on the post-match show as we usually are at about 5:15. So please do join us for both of them or either of them. We'll gladly have you along and keep us company. And hopefully it's not a war of attrition at the Den tomorrow. Can't think of a worse game for Mowbray to be trying to get a win from with this run of form. But we'll see what happens. But Rovers fans, please do enjoy the rest of your evenings. Gareth has snuck in with a prediction there. 1-0 win for Rovers. There we go. I'll finish on two things. 1-0 win for Rovers from Gareth. A big happy birthday to Kevin. That's the way to finish our evening with. And just a couple of reminders. We are sponsored by Blue Rose Capital. And we are also sponsored by 6yardsout.com. See you later, everyone.
The Rovers Chat YouTube channel is proudly sponsored by 6yardsout.com. They've got retro football from every era with mugs, phone cases and much more. They also have plenty of Rovers goods, including apparel with the famous 94-95 season and this season's kit. Check them out using the link in the description below.